And to discuss more on the new Benami bill proposed, we are joined now by real estate expert Manoj Mishra, MD, AUGTICS. Welcome to Business Wrap, sir.
Thank you.
Well, to begin with, we know about this new law proposed by the government in the cabinet meeting. How significant do you think is this move in context of UPA regime facing heat over the black money issue already?
A major, actually much more than what a normal person will feel on the face of it. Just look at it. The parallel economy, as you call, is almost 15 lakh crore. There's an estimate by World Bank. It's in 1/4 of the GDP, almost 25%. And we had already the bill was there for 22 years, which was not implemented because of a lot of lacunas. Implementing the bill, ensuring there's the Benami properties properly defined, ensuring that the people who violate this law are prosecuted. If the procedure is defined effectively, it's going to have a major impact in the way people look at using their black money. Essentially, real estate is one of the areas where people park the money. And in parking in normal case, if you're buying a land, there's a lot of black and white transaction. In a normal case also you do it, but when you have a lot of money, with a lot of black money, you resort to this Benami transaction. Because there were loopholes in the law, people were using it. Now with the stricter process, people will stay away from getting into Benami transaction, and that will mean that money should flow in some form in the regular economy and not go in the black economy. So I see as a major impact overall on the market, especially on the corruption, to check corruption.
Well, certainly we're talking about black money being parked in market, especially when it comes to real estate transactions. We also have news actually about people, newcomers, new people who want to settle newly in their life, not being able to afford too much money, and they are told by the real estate dealers that okay, give me this much % in black and this much you can perhaps get issued from bank as loan or whatever.
Right.
That could be white, but this % should be black. Though there's no strong backing to this news, but of course this is known everywhere. Yeah. So such kind of transactions are also being looked at now?
No, actually, unfortunately, that's not the purview of this particular bill. I mean, you're only talking about Benami transaction.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, when you buy a property which is in somebody else's name, but you are paying it, and that person is not. I mean, although actually the definition is even if your money, if you're using your money to buy a property in the name of your wife, that's also Benami by this definition. But that's
that is not
prohibited.
Punishable. Yeah.
But that's not prohibited.
True.
It's legal. You can do
it's
it.
Legal,
but if you're buying, if I'm buying in neighbor's name, I know of cases. I mean, I know a specific. I've heard a specific case where a gentleman buys name property in the name of all the people he knows. He's got a lot of money. Now, all these things are going to be things of past. It's going to happen slowly. Once the law is enacted, once it actually comes into the implementation, and once there are penal action taken against the people, it's going to have a major impact on the overall economy.
Right, that seems like a very promising news, but at the same time, we often make laws, bills are proposed, but when it comes to implementation, we lack somewhere. So how do you look at the implementation side of it?
So let's look at why the implementation don't happen properly. If you don't define what is a Benami property, if your definition is wide open, you're leaving it to somebody else to judge. And in fact, if you're leaving a lot of things open, instead of curbing the corruption, you are increasing the chances of having more corruption. So in this case, they're clearly defining, the Benami properties. Then you define the procedure of recovery and punishment, which is going to be defined in this bill. Where earlier it was not even known that who is going to be punishing it. Okay. Now, other important thing I believe is earlier the onus to prove that the property is Benami lied on the government or on the person who was telling, but that's changed.
That's true.
So these changes, which are significant changes in this bill, and I believe that the bill which is proposed in the current form takes care of all these lacunae which are there in the earlier one. So one would hope that this will be implemented properly. There's another case in the earlier bill. Agricultural land was not. How do you deal with that? A lot of people buy agricultural land in the Benami name, So all those things we believe that they will be taken care of by this bill.
You believe this is going to be a more comprehensive
Absolutely
bill?
right, because
filling the loopholes,
all the loopholes which are in the earlier one just for 22 years, but not at all implemented. So so we hope that all these things are taken care, and of course final bill will come and it discuss in the parliament. In what forms it comes,
absolutely,
it's still to be seen. But this is a great sort of initiative.
Let's also talk about the punishment now. The proposed new law, anyone violating the rule can be jailed for not less than 6 months, which may be extended to 2 years, and also be liable to a fine. Now, do you think such kind of punishment would actually give sharper teeth to this law?
The people who are doing this transaction are definitely scared about going to jail.
Okay.
So having a 6-month compulsory punishment is actually good enough deterrent, because this puts the social stigma on you if you're indulging in that. And a lot of people actually today indulge in this Benami transaction. So the amount is not sort of important from my perspective, but to have it implemented, to have that somebody is in jail for 6 months for this particular for owning a Benami property, if that is implemented, definitely is going to have impact.
Okay, let's also talk about this clause where property is acquired by individual in the name of spouse, brother or sister or any other lineal ascendant or descendant are Benami transactions which are not prohibited. This is one clause of this law. Now, do you think this is a catch in the whole thing, or this is just fine? Because people do book many slots or many properties on the name of their kith and kin. So
now actually interesting, there was I think objection raised on this by probably Home Ministry on this bill. Now it was overruled because in a normal course in a family, you're doing with consent of the family member. If you're doing with consent, it is fine. And I guess there are enough ways to prove that it has not happened with consent if it is such a close family relationship. So I don't see that as a catch. Okay. But again, it will depend upon how the things are implemented on the ground and how it's interpreted by the people on the ground, and that's actually quite far off from now.
Okay, let's also talk about the business aspect of it, as we were earlier also talking about the transactions of real estate. Considering the situation now and the way transactions are taking place, once the bill is implemented, what kind of differences would you see, and how better would the transactions be?
See, there's not going to be change in quality of transaction. It's going to remain the same. What is going to happen is that few people, and several people actually, who use the Benami route to park in properties, they will not do those transactions. And hence we'll see a marginal impact on the market, because number of transactions will decline. And it's like a stock market. When you have less transaction, the property market remain cooled. And there's more transaction, it goes up. So in that sense, you will see a bit of cooling, and bit of less of speculative things. But for curbing that market, much more needs to be done by government, because unlike a stock market where the moment you've done a transaction,
there'll be an impact.
Everything is known to government. But in case of property, this is not the case. You can buy a property, but you are not going to register it for 6 months. Nobody knows that whether you have transacted into that property. So there are a lot of issues with the real estate transaction, and a lot needs to be done on that space, and I believe that's to be tackled by the real estate regulation bill and not by this bill. But yes, it will cool down the market a bit, because number of transactions will come down a bit, not too much. But
so you're saying the number of transactions might reduce, the frequency might reduce, but at the same time they'll be checked legally in a way, to some extent at least, because of this law. But a lot more needs to be done by the government for transparent transactions.
For real estate, it is one of the sectors which is the most disorganized sector. In fact, I am into this because I felt there's so much corruption in this area. I mean, I'm a technology professional, worked in 15 years, and 4 years back we set up AUGTICS with a clear aim to work on this area, because there's no transparency. And we believe that a lot needs to be done in that space, a lot. And these are right steps. Governments are taking steps one by one, and I see that in 5 years from now, things will be very, very different.
Right. So let's hope in 5 years from now, indeed, things are better from now. Thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast Wrap, Business Wrap. And